Welcome to the Terror Time. The first story is about the lighthouse's last Halloween. On a remote coastal town, the old lighthouse stood as a sentinel over the jagged cliffs. It had weathered many storms, but none like the one that swept through on Halloween night. That evening, the fog was so thick that it swallowed sound, and the lighthouse's beam barely cut through the mist. The town's residents often spoke in hushed tones about the lighthouse keeper who disappeared under mysterious circumstances years ago, but only the brave dared to visit the lighthouse on Halloween. Twin Paranormal, a popular ghost hunting duo from YouTube, decided to investigate the lighthouse after hearing the tales of the keeper's ghost. They arrived with their equipment, ready to capture any signs of paranormal activity. As they set up their cameras, the Halloween soundtrack playing faintly in the background added an eerie vibe to the already unsettling atmosphere. As midnight approached, the wind howled through the broken windows, creating ghostly whispers. The team noticed a sudden drop in temperature, their breath visible in the chilly air. They began to hear the faint sounds of spooky Halloween music echoing through the halls, even though they had turned off their devices. Suddenly, one of the members experienced sleep paralysis, his body rigid as he lay on the cold floor. In his frozen state, he saw the lighthouse keeper standing in the doorway, his eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. The spectre moved closer, whispering in a language unknown, but the tone was one of warning. The man snapped out of the paralysis as the figure vanished, leaving behind only the scent of the sea and decay. Meanwhile, the other member of Twin Paranormal caught the image of a shadowy figure on camera. Upon reviewing the footage, they discovered what appeared to be horror-found footage of the lighthouse keeper's final moments. Trapped in the lighthouse, as the waves crashed around it, screaming for help that never came, the footage seemed too real, almost as if it had been uploaded from the dark web horror stories. As they tried to make sense of what they had witnessed, the Halloween music grew louder, now a terrifying cacophony. The walls of the lighthouse seemed to close in, and the once solid structure began to feel like a maze. The team frantically tried to find their way out, but every door they opened led them deeper into the heart of the lighthouse. Suddenly, the spirit Halloween figure, which had been merely a decoration at the entrance, animated and lunged at them. It was a manifestation of the lighthouse keeper's revenge. Fueled by years of anger and despair, they barely managed to escape, the lighthouse keeper's laughter echoing behind them as they stumbled out into the cold Halloween night. They never spoke of that night again. The footage they captured was too terrifying, too real to share with the world. But the lighthouse remained, its light flickering every Halloween night, a reminder of the keeper's tragic fate. The second story is about the haunted manor's Halloween nightmare. Deep in the woods, an abandoned manor stood forgotten by time, its crumbling facade hidden by dense overgrowth. The manor had a notorious reputation, fueled by countless Reddit horror stories of those who ventured inside, only to return with tales of unspeakable terror. Every year, the manor attracted thrill-seekers looking for the ultimate Halloween scare. This year, a group of friends decided to spend Halloween night inside, hoping to capture their experience on camera for a horror movie reaction video. As they approached the manor, the horror ambience was palpable. The wind rustled the dry leaves, and the moon cast long shadows on the ground, giving the manor an otherworldly appearance. They set up their equipment, including a horror-scary cam, determined to document every moment of their terrifying adventure. Inside, the manor was a labyrinth of decaying rooms and dark hallways. The air was thick with dust, and the walls seemed to close in on them as they explored further. The horror ambient in the background added to the eerie atmosphere, making every creak and groan of the old house feel like a ghostly whisper. In one of the rooms, they found an old gramophone with a stack of records. Curious, they played one, and the room filled with the haunting melody of Halloween jazz. The music was unnerving, yet captivating, and they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. As the music played, the temperature in the room dropped, and they could see their breath in the dim light. Suddenly, one of the friends noticed something odd on the Halloween green screen they had set up for their video. A shadowy figure appeared, moving behind them, but when they turned around, there was nothing there. They reviewed the footage in horror, realizing that the figure had no discernible features, only a void where a face should be. This was no ordinary ghost. This was cosmic horror, something beyond human comprehension. The group tried to shake off the fear. Deciding to explore the rest of the manor, they came across a room filled with old Halloween decorations, including some from Halloween 1978 and Halloween 3. The decorations seemed out of place, as if someone had set them up recently. A DIY Halloween project gone wrong, perhaps, but the decorations had a sinister quality to them, especially a life-sized figure of a clown that seemed to watch their every move. As they continued, they discovered a doorway that led down into the horror mine, a basement filled with old, rusted mining equipment. The walls were lined with ancient symbols, and the air was thick with the smell of damp earth. They felt a growing sense of dread, as if something was waiting for them in the darkness. Their fears were confirmed when they heard the sound of footsteps echoing through the mine. They ran back upstairs, only to find the manor's layout had changed. The rooms they had explored were no longer where they should be, and the manor seemed to be shifting around them. Panic set in as they realized they were trapped. The Halloween playlist they had set earlier now played a distorted version of Halloween lo-fi, adding to the surreal horror of the situation. They frantically searched for an exit, but the manor had become a twisted maze of endless hallways and dead ends. In the end, they found themselves back in the room with the gramophone. The music had changed to a haunting melody, reminiscent of Halloween 2007. As the final notes played, the manor's true nature was revealed, a gateway to another dimension, where lost souls were trapped for eternity. The friends' screams echoed through the halls as the manor claimed them, their fates sealed by the midnight horror station. The next morning, the manor stood silent once more, waiting for its next victims. The third story is about the dark web's Halloween horrors. It all started with a dare. Jack, an avid fan of true horror stories, was known for his obsession with the darkest corners of the internet. One Halloween night, his friends dared him to explore the infamous dark web and find something truly terrifying. Never one to back down from a challenge, Jack accepted and began his search. As he delved deeper into the dark web, he stumbled upon a hidden site known only as World of Horror. The site was a treasure trove of the most disturbing content imaginable: horror mine footage, analog horror reaction videos, and cursed stories that seemed too real to be fiction. Jack was fascinated, unable to look away as he clicked through the site's offerings. One video, titled The Halloween Gambit, caught his attention. The thumbnail was a haunting image of a scarecrow with hollow eyes and a twisted grin. Intrigued, Jack clicked on the video. The screen went black for a moment before the video started, showing a group of people dressed in Halloween costumes, standing in what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse. The video had an eerie, analog horror vibe with grainy footage and unsettling sound effects. As the video progressed, the group began to play a twisted game of truth or dare, each challenge more horrifying than the last. One by one, the participants disappeared, their fates left to the viewer's imagination. The final scene was a close-up of the scarecrow, its eyes glowing as it whispered, "Happy Halloween." Jack shuddered, feeling the darkness of the video seep into him. He tried to shake it off, turning his attention to a Batman, the long Halloween trailer that had just been uploaded. But the unsettling feeling lingered, and he couldn't escape the sense that something was watching him. To distract himself, Jack decided to work on a Halloween DIY project he had planned, a smoke machine mist maker for his front yard. As he set up the decorations, including a Halloween witch and some spooky Halloween sounds, he tried to forget about the video. But every time he looked over his shoulder, he half expected to see the scarecrow standing there, watching him. As the night wore on, Jack heard a strange noise coming from his computer. The Halloween chiptune he had playing in the background had suddenly warped, becoming a distorted version of the Halloween theme song. The screen flickered, and the Spirit Halloween screensaver he had running was replaced by the scarecrow from the video. Panicked, Jack tried to shut down his computer, but it wouldn't respond. The Scarecrow's face filled the screen, its voice echoing through the speakers. "You played the game, Jack. Now it's time to pay the price." Suddenly, the room was filled with thick fog from the smoke machine, and Jack's heart raced as he realized the fog was coming from his computer as well. The Halloween decorations around him seemed to come to life. The Halloween witch cackled, and the sounds of Halloween horror nights filled the room. Jack backed away, only to trip over the mistmaker, sending it crashing to the floor. The Scarecrow on the screen leaned forward, its grin widening. "Halloween on Halloween, Jack? You should have known better." The video cut off abruptly, leaving Jack in darkness. The only sound the eerie whispers of Halloween ASMR. As the fog cleared, Jack found himself alone in his room, but something had changed. The Scarecrow was no longer on the screen. It was standing right behind him, its hollow eyes glowing in the dim light. Jack's scream was the last sound that night, as the Scarecrow claimed its final victim. The next day, Jack's computer was found still running, the screen displaying a Halloween playlist on loop. But Jack was nowhere to be found, his fate sealed by the horrors of the dark web. The fourth story is about the Halloween party from beyond. It was the Halloween party everyone had been talking about for weeks, hosted in an old, seemingly abandoned mansion at the edge of town. The invitations promised a night of thrilling scares and unforgettable memories. The theme was simple: come dressed as your worst nightmare. As guests arrived, they were greeted by a maze of Halloween decorations that seemed to pulse with an eerie life of their own. The front yard was transformed into a graveyard, complete with fog and ghostly figures that moved in the darkness. A large banner reading "Halloween Horror Nights" hung above the door, setting the tone for what was to come. Inside, the party was in full swing. The sound of spooky Halloween music filled the air, mixing with the laughter and screams of the guests. The Halloween soundtrack featured classics like the theme from Halloween 1978 and eerie tunes from Halloween 3. The decorations inside were even more elaborate, with giant spiders, life-size skeletons, and a Halloween green screen where guests could take pictures with animated ghouls. In one corner of the room, a group was huddled around a TV, watching a scary movie reaction video to the latest Halloween kills. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of impending doom, as if something terrible was just around the corner. But the guests brushed off the feeling, attributing it to the spooky ambience of the party. As the night wore on, the Halloween playlist shifted to a mix of Halloween lo-fi and Halloween ASMR, creating a more relaxed vibe. Guests mingled, showing off their DIY Halloween costumes and sharing their excitement for the night's main event, a seance that promised to summon spirits from the beyond. At midnight, the lights dimmed, and the host, dressed as a twisted version of the spirit Halloween mascot, gathered everyone around a large, ornate table in the center of the room. The guests, now slightly tipsy and eager for more scares, followed instructions as the host led them in a chant. The room grew colder, and the candles flickered as a chilling wind swept through the mansion. Suddenly, the music stopped, and the room was plunged into silence. The Halloween soundtrack began to play in reverse, and the guests looked around nervously as the atmosphere grew increasingly sinister. The host's voice took on a strange, otherworldly tone as they continued the chant, and the table began to shake. The lights flickered and then went out completely. In the darkness, the sound of whispers filled the room, followed by a loud, bone-chilling scream. The lights snapped back on, revealing the guests' horrified faces as they saw what had appeared before them. A group of ghostly figures, their faces twisted in agony. The seance had worked too well. The spirits, summoned by the chant, were not happy to be disturbed. They moved among the guests, their icy breath sending shivers down spines. The once festive Halloween decorations now looked terrifying, their grinning faces mocking the guests' terror. Panic set in as the guests tried to flee, but the mansion seemed to have a mind of its own. Doors slammed shut, and the walls seemed to close in, trapping everyone inside. The Halloween on Halloween theme had taken a dark turn, and the partygoers realized too late that they were part of the ultimate Halloween gambit, a night of horror that would never end. As the spirits closed in, The host revealed their true identity: a vengeful spirit seeking Halloween revenge for a betrayal that happened long ago in the very same mansion. The guests' screams echoed through the night, blending with the haunting Halloween music that played on a loop. When the authorities arrived the next day, the mansion was silent, the decorations eerily still. No trace of the guests was found, except for their Halloween costumes, neatly folded on the floor, and a single note: Halloween ends when the spirits say so. The fifth story is about the final ride on Halloween night. The legend of the Phantom Bus was a tale known to all who lived in the small town of Whispering Pines. It was said that on Halloween night, a ghostly bus would appear, picking up unsuspecting passengers and taking them on a final ride through the afterlife. No one knew for sure if the stories were true, but the accounts on Reddit horror stories were enough to keep most people off the roads after dark. This Halloween night, however, a group of friends decided to test the legend. They were avid fans of horror, often spending their weekends watching scary movie reactions and sharing the latest horror movie recap videos. This year, they wanted a real experience, something that would top any horror film they'd ever seen. The group set off just after midnight, driving down the lonely roads that wound through the dense woods outside of town. The only sound was the faint echo of spooky Halloween music from their car's speakers, mixing with the eerie Halloween sounds of the forest. The Halloween playlist played softly, keeping the mood light as they laughed off the possibility of encountering the Phantom Bus. As they rounded a bend, the lighthouse horror theme from a recent horror movie recap began to play. The road ahead was suddenly shrouded in fog, and the car's headlights barely pierced the gloom. Then, out of nowhere, a bus appeared, its headlights blinding in the dark. The group exchanged uneasy glances as the bus slowly approached, its windows dark and the number on the front reading 666. One of the friends, who had a fascination with paranormal stories, urged them to follow the bus. Reluctantly, they agreed, their laughter replaced by nervous silence. The bus led them deeper into the woods, the fog growing thicker with each passing mile. The road became narrow, lined with old, twisted trees that seemed to reach out like skeletal hands. The horror ambience inside the car grew tense as the bus came to a stop in front of an old, abandoned mine, one that had been closed for years after a series of tragic accidents. The friends, now fully unnerved, watched as the bus doors creaked open. There was no driver, only darkness within. The bus seemed to beckon them, daring them to step inside. Despite their fear, curiosity got the better of them. They left the safety of their car and approached the bus, the horror mine looming ominously behind them. As they stepped aboard, the doors slammed shut and the bus roared to life. The friends screamed as the bus sped off, hurtling down the winding roads with a speed that defied the laws of physics. The inside of the bus was a nightmare. The walls seemed to pulse with cosmic horror, and the seats were filled with ghostly figures, their hollow eyes staring blankly ahead. The bus's interior shifted and warped, as if they were trapped in a never-ending loop of their worst nightmares. One of the friends collapsed, experiencing sleep paralysis as a shadowy figure loomed over him, whispering ancient words that chilled him to the core. The bus came to a sudden stop at the entrance of the mine, and the friends were thrown from their seats. The doors flew open, and they were forced out into the cold night. The bus vanished, leaving them alone at the mouth of the horror mine. They heard the distant echo of Halloween jazz mixed with the wails of the lost souls trapped within the mine. Terrified and disoriented, the friends tried to find their way back to the car, but the fog had thickened, and the forest around them had transformed into a twisted maze. The spooky Halloween music from their car was now a distant, haunting melody, barely audible over the pounding of their hearts. As they stumbled through the darkness, they realized with dawning horror that they were not alone. The spirits of the mine's victims, now vengeful and restless, surrounded them. The friends' screams echoed through the night, blending with the eerie sounds of Halloween night. By morning, the friends were reported missing. The authorities found their car abandoned on the side of the road, the Halloween decorations inside untouched. The only clue was a note left on the dashboard. Missing Halloween, forever lost on Halloween on Halloween. The phantom bus had claimed its latest victims, and the legend of Whispering Pines grew darker still. As the last echoes of our haunted tales fade into the night, remember, these stories may have been spun from imagination, but every legend has a kernel of truth. Halloween is a time when the veil between our world and the unknown is thinnest, where the things that go bump in the night might just be more than mere figments of our fears. If these stories gave you chills, or made you think twice about the shadows in the corner of your room, then hit that like button and share this video with fellow horror lovers. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the next terrifying tale. And now, as you prepare to close your eyes, just remember, on Halloween night, you're never truly alone. Sleep well, if you can. Until next time, stay spooky.